So we're going to speak about some life-changing, game-changing stocks in this video here today. But right off the bat here, this is kind of like when you say grace before you eat. I wanted to point this out. I was reading a little bit about what's going on in Nigeria in regards to their economy. Nigerians struggle to make ends meet amid economic crisis. Toyin, a resident of Lagos and a caterer by profession, lives with asthma. Her son has the condition too, but medicine has become so expensive in Nigeria that they can't afford the inhalers they need. Amid a worsening economic crisis, she isn't sure how they'll get by. With the way the economy is going, things are really getting tough. You're struggling to buy foodstuffs. You're also trying to stock up on medication. So for me, I can cut down on the inhaler for myself. I won't cut it for my child, she said, right? And I just want to point that out right here off the bat because, you know, if we look at the viewers of my channel, right? Heavy United States, heavy Canada, then we have obviously United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, Singapore, Netherlands, and Sweden. Those are the most popular, you know, that's basically where everybody lives that watches my videos. And shout out if you live outside of those areas, but more than likely you watching this video right now, you live in those areas, right? And so the whole world's really been hit up by inflation over the past 2 or 3 years. And it really hasn't been fun, right? But I just want to we got to always be thankful for what you have in the situation you're in, because I can tell you, it's far worse out there. It's far worse out there for a lot of folks. They're trying to figure out if they can even get food. They're trying to figure out if they can even get an inhaler, right? So just always a little food for thought in regards to, you know, being thankful for kind of what you have in this world, okay? Alrighty, guys. So this is the biggest divergence I've ever seen in a 5-day. I've never seen it this insane, ever. And I've been doing this since 2008, 2009, right? The Russell in the past 5 days up 11 percentage points. The NASDAQ's down in the past 5 days. I've never seen, like literally, I wish I could go throughout all of history and try to find if there's been a more insane 5-day span in regards to a divergence between the Russell and the NASDAQ like that. I doubt there's ever been. You can see it on a heat map here. Look at that. I mean, all the biggest dogs red, but then the rest, the heat map, all the small ones green. That picture is worth a million words right there, right? Absolutely incredible. So let's talk about some opportunities in this market. We're going to talk about some stocks that are going to skyrocket in the coming months if this rotation that's going on right now continues to roll. I mean, we're talking about some absolutely game-changing gains out there that will be had over this coming months if this rotation that we're seeing here continues to play out, okay? All right, guys, appreciate you joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being subscribed to the channel. We're at a new all-time high in the history of the channel in regards to subscribers. Appreciate y'all. If you're looking to apply, join my private stock group and get access to all my premium courses, all those sorts of things, click the pinned comment down there, fill in an application, okay? Alrighty, guys, so first thing we got to keep in mind here is, I thought I would bring this off the top. This is a 5-year chart of the NASDAQ versus Russell. Now, although recently, right, as in the past 5 days, we got a major divergence going on, there's a long way to go in this game. I mean, you know, you could get 2 to 6 more months of this, what we have playing out here, right, happening, right? 5-year span, the NASDAQ should not divert from the Russell that much. It's okay if the NASDAQ outperforms the Russell over a 5-year span, but to this level, this is insanity. This is pure insanity. This is not going to last. It never does. People think many times, like, these things can just keep going forever and ever. No, these things always revert to the mean. They always end up coming back to reality, right? And that's exactly what we're going to see play out here. If you look at the Russell and the NASDAQ over time, right, they're going to roll pretty much together, right? But you can get these freakish time periods where there's just an insane divergence between the two, and that's what we're going through. And so keep in mind, as the Russell rolls up, right, it's going to go a long way before it gets back close to the NASDAQ again. And don't necessarily expect the Russell to outperform the NASDAQ over the next 5 years, although that is actually a possibility. But don't expect that. Just expect things to get a lot closer, because that spread there will not last. As I've told you guys, it will not last, right? Now, in the past 1 to 2 years, we've seen some game-changing stocks, right? And we're going to get into the next ones up here in just a moment, but I think we got to recap the ones that have been game-changers for the past 1 to 2 years. Because these stocks I'm about to show you, a lot of them, if we go back in time 2 years ago today, right, a lot of these stocks were out of favor. And it's important to understand things can change really rapidly in regards to the market in terms of people not wanting a piece of stocks and they just can't stop selling them. To all of a sudden, everybody's running over themselves, trampling over themselves to buy these sorts of stocks, right? You look at something like a Meta. You couldn't find somebody to be a buyer of the stock 2 years ago other than me. I mean, honestly, and maybe some of you guys out there, let me know if you bought Meta stock back in 2022. If you bought Meta stock in 2022, leave me a comment. Say, I bought Meta stock in 2022. I would love to hear from you guys and see how many people were actually buying Meta stock back in 2022. Leave me a comment down there, okay? But the moral of the story is the far majority of folks were selling that stock nonstop, and they did not stop selling until we got to October, November of that year in 2022, right? They sold all the way till the fourth quarter. They could not stop themselves from selling, right? And it just was like, where's the buying pressure? And then look at how much things have changed. Now we're sitting on a $631,000 gain on Meta stock. We're sitting on 313% up, right? And keep in mind, I didn't even buy all my shares near the lows. I got some shares near the lows. I got some at like 88, 94. I got some at $100 something, right? But keep in mind, I've been buying that stock for on and off for quite a while. So it's not like I got in right at $88 or something like that, right? That would have been great if I got all my shares at that price. And yet an absolute game changer of a stock. I mean, that's a crazy, crazy number there, right? I mean, look at that. I put 200 into it and we're sitting on 631 of gains. I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal, right? Tesla's obviously been a game-changing stock really over the past 10 plus years. But remember, back in early 2023, you could pick up Tesla shares for around $100. Around $100 at that particular time, right? No one wanted a piece of Tesla. You look at a stock like Elf Beauty. I mean, that one's been a tremendous performer. It's my best performing stock as far as percent gain, right? Sitting on around a 2,500% gain. This is a crazy one. Check this out. I put $7,200 into the stock, and I'm sitting on $181,000 of gains. My gosh, like that's pretty wild. That should be a little motivating to folks to like put in some research work. Take this stuff serious, right? Learn everything you got to learn in regards to valuing companies, understanding financial statements, understanding conference calls, 10Ks, 10Qs. Like, because when you know, the money's different. The money's different when you start putting in the work. The money's very, very different, right? And check out ELF on a 2-year chart. Here's a 2-year chart of ELF. 474% just in the past 2 years on the stock. And the NASDAQ's had a tremendous past 2 years, right? Up 64%, but it just gets absolutely obliterated by ELF overall. S&P 500's done very well the past 2 years, but it's gotten obliterated by ELF, right? Look something like Palantir. Palantir stock, now sitting on a 224% gain on the stock, now sitting on $110,000 of gains. And this one I only put in $49,000. So put in 49, sitting on 110 of profits. And there's a lot of Palantir shareholders out there that feel like we're still early days in regards to this Palantir growth story. I'm one of those. Like Palantir's revenues last year are very, very minuscule compared to where Palantir's revenues are going to be in the year 2030, 2033, 2035. Like it's still an early day story in regards to this one. The amount of commercial growth this company's going to have over the next 5-10 years, absolutely ridiculous. And so absolutely tremendous gains there, right? Now, to put into, because sometimes you see the numbers on the screen, it takes a bit to set in, like how game-changing these stocks are, right? In these stocks we're about to get into in just a moment, how game-changing they could potentially be, right? But $110,000 in gains, you could buy, if you bought a $550,000 house, right? That's a down payment on the house at a 20% down payment, which is very customary in the United States, right? $110,000. And I'm like, what could you get for that? Well, you get this 3,000 square foot house in North Las Vegas here with a pool, but you don't really want to live in North Las Vegas. I'm just going to be honest with you guys, okay? When you move to Vegas, don't move to North Las Vegas. Move to Summerlin. That's where you want to be, okay? So I found this house. They want $634 for it. You might be able to give them down to $550. I doubt it, but if you could, that's a steal deal. They got a nice pool on that one, man. And then you could actually be in Summerlin. But I found you the best deal right here in Henderson. Check out this one. Look at this. This is a little finesse on this one. I'm thinking about buying this myself for a rental and renovating it and doing some work here. You get the pool with it, right? You could probably get it for under $500. You could probably get it $490, $499, something like that, right? You're right outside Seven Hills, which is a very nice area here. And oh my gosh, look at the land. If you live in the country, you're like, what's the big deal? Land. I'm telling you, in Vegas, you don't get crap for land. Literally in Vegas, you get a little shoebox for a backyard here, man, because the builders all want to maximize the amount of profit made, so they don't give you any backyard pretty much at all. You just get, basically the house, and they build everything as close as they possibly can, so when you can get that sort of land in somewhere like Henderson, woo, that's a steal deal there. But anyways, the moral of that story was, let it sink in, like how much, these stocks can kind of change the game for you, right? NVIDIA. Unfortunately, not a game changer for me. It took me much longer to react to what was going on in regards to NVIDIA and how lasting that really was. So I've made good money on NVIDIA, 44% in the public account, right? But it's not like I can really call like stock a game changer for me, but it's been a game changer for others, right? Look at the 2-year return on NVIDIA. This is a 2-year return, 700%. Now keep in mind, NVIDIA was not some secret company. NVIDIA was already, if you knew anything about the stock market, you knew about NVIDIA 2 years ago. That was not some like, oh, I've never heard of that company. What do they do, right? That was not NVIDIA at all. NVIDIA was already a very famous stock in the stock market, right? And, here's the deal. Most people that invest in the S&P 500, for instance, right, if you just invest in an index fund, you're hoping to basically double your money every 7 years, right? That's like kind of how you think about it. You want to double your money every 7 years, maybe 8 years in the S&P 500. Like that's the goal. And NVIDIA gave you a 700% return, not a 100% return, a 700% return in 2 years. This is why individual stock picking can go a long way. And when done right, it is an absolute game changer. And, how do you mitigate the risk of downside in regards to these individual stocks? Stay diversified. That's why you see me. How many stocks do I own? Probably 20, probably 20 plus stocks. That's how I mitigate my risk. So if I get it wrong, because I will get stocks wrong, no one's perfect. That's the magic in this game. And people will say, well, that stock you got wrong over there and you got that stock wrong. Well, who cares? If I got 4 stocks wrong out of 24 stocks I own, who cares? I got 20 right. If I got 8 stocks wrong out of 24 stocks, that means I got 16 right. And especially as long as where I'm putting the bigger money is correct, game changer. Let this all sink in for a moment here, and this is why the work is worth it. A lot of people get so lazy, like, I don't know if I want to put in the work to individual stock picking. Got to listen to a conference call. It's going to take from my TikTok time. I can't watch as much Netflix. Well, you could do a lot more fun things than watching TikTok and Netflix if you had real money, right? Think about that. Let that sink in for a moment here. The work is worth it, but you got to know what you're doing. If you have no clue, how to value a stock, if you have no clue on how to do these financial statements, this is all stuff I literally go through all this in the course curriculums in my private group. I teach all this stuff. I literally teach all this stuff in there. Like, there's no excuse on like, I can't learn it. Like, dude, I literally teach all this stuff so you can understand all this inside and out. But, a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, I can't learn that. Like, okay, you're not going to ever have big money. That's all I want to tell you about that, right? SMCI stock, look at the 2-year return on this one, 1,600%. And also let this hit you for a moment, right? You're seeing all those returns. I wouldn't even say we've had a great economy in the last 2 years. Would you say our economy has been great the last 2 years? I don't think so. We've had a pretty low unemployment rate, but real wages have not been in a good place the last 2 years. Consumer confidence, consumer sentiment numbers have been horrible the last 2 years. A lot of earnings for a lot of companies have not been good the last 2 years. And despite all that, despite super high inflation, despite Fed funds rate being at the highest we've seen in how long? 20 years, 20 plus years, despite all that, there were still game-changing stocks out there that could have changed your life for the better, right? And if you got to participate in some of those stocks like I have, the last 2 years for you have looked really dang good, right? If you haven't been able to participate in those stocks the last 2 years, no bueno, right? All you feel is like, I'm losing to inflation, I'm not making any money out there. This stuff matters, right? Even look at a boring stock. Toll Brothers, the home builder, so boring. 175% gain in the past 2 years. And remember what we spoke about. People that invest in the S&P 500 are hoping for 100% gain every 7 to 8 years. And this boring, sleepy Toll Brothers has given you 175% just in a 2 year. In an economy that people don't even view as good for the last 2 years. Let that sink in. In a housing market that's been absolutely not good the last 2 years, right? Mortgage applications have recently hit pretty much all-time lows. Like absolutely incredible, right? Look at Wingstop. We're talking chicken wings. 288% gain on that stock. Oh my gosh. In 2 years for chicken wings? Come on, man. That's insane, right? All I can hope is Cake gets that sort of love and that sort of respect in the future, right? And I think I have a belief that someday people are going to understand the opportunity with North Italia. They're going to understand the opportunity with Flower Child and how big those brands are going to be. And at that moment, Cake's valuation is going to explode to the upside. Oh my gosh, I love this. $9,999 gain. Oh, I love all those nines. That is so sick. You know I love all when it's all same numbers laid out like that. That is so freaking cool. I'm glad I screenshot that. I just realized that. So some days people are going to understand this opportunity in regards to Cake, and that stock's going to explode to the upside, but it takes a while for people to really understand it, right? The thing I love about Cake is not just that upside, the margin of safety is ridiculous, right? The margin of safety I have in Cake, the chances I lose money in Cake over the next few years, so small. Such a small chance I lose money on Cake. Outside of a huge stock market crash, I would say it's less than a 10% probability I lose money in Cake over the next couple years outside of a stock market crash, right? But then you look at Wingstop, you look at Chipotle, 118 forward P, 52 forward P. Those, even if the stock market didn't crash, those stocks could easily crash 50, 60, 70% in the next 2 years. Doesn't mean they will, but they could easily, because the valuation on those stocks is so sky high ridiculous, right? So sometimes you got to let that sort of stuff sink in, right? Now, let's talk about if this rotation rolls, if this rotation we're seeing play out here from a lot of these larger companies into the smaller companies, which stocks are going to be absolute game changers that are going to go up 50%, 100%, 200%, 300%, 500% over this next bit of time, right? What are those sorts of companies? And keep in mind, some of these sorts of companies I'm about to take you through, they roll a lot more heavy and a lot faster than a lot of those big companies I just rolled you through, because a lot of those other companies I've shown you, a lot of those market caps are tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of dollars or even $1 trillion plus, right? It takes a lot more to get those stocks rolling. Some of these ones we're about to go through, doesn't take a lot of money for them to start flying, absolutely flying, okay? RVLV, Revolve stock's a perfect example. This stock is already up 17.5% in the last 5 days. If this rotation continues over the next several months, Revolve is going to skyrocket in that situation. Look at that move here today, 11% up. And keep in mind, when it comes to these stocks I'm about to show you, they've had relentless selling on them for 3 years. So there's not a lot of people left to sell these stocks. Like if people wanted to sell these stocks, they got out of these stocks over the last 3 years. So now these stocks are set up in this ultra situation where if money starts to really funnel into these stocks, you're going to see ridiculous moves, like seeing Revolve today up 11%. That's ridiculous. They didn't come out with earnings. There was no big news in regards to Revolve. It was just another day in the stock market, and Revolve was up 11%. Just because that's where money's rotating, right? Incredible. Remember, people hope to make 7 to 8% in the S&P 500 a year, and this stock's 11% in a day. In a day, right? Now, the fascinating thing with a lot of these stocks is you got to understand where these stocks were 3 years ago. And so that's why I'm pulling up 3-year charts to kind of show you before we got crazy inflation that has sliced and diced everybody for 3 years, right? Before we got the crazy rate hike cycle that took Fed funds rate to the highest it's been at in 20 plus years, right? Before we had all that, where were these stocks at? Revolve was in like the $70 range, right? And today it's $18. $18. So let's imagine the Fed chills out over the next year or two. Let's imagine inflation is not a problem for the next year or two. Where do you think Revolve's going to in that sort of situation, right? Look at somebody like a Fubo. Fubo's made a move of 16+% in just the past 5 days, 7.5% here today. If you see this rotation, stocks like Fubo are going to absolutely moon, right? Keep in mind, where was this stock at 3 years ago? It was 17x where it's at now. So if Fubo was to make a move just to where it was 3 years ago, which, by the way, the financials are in a massively better place for Fubo now versus 3 years ago. The revenue, the bottom line, the amount of customers, everything basically for this company. And so if this stock went to where it used to be 3 years ago, it would be a 17x return. 1,700%. Let that sink in for a moment, right? Look at somebody like a SoFi. SoFi stock is absolutely animal right now. It's up almost 21% in the past 5 trading days, up 5.7% here today alone, right? I mean, look at that, almost 21% gain in 5 trading days. And there's no big earth-shaking move in regards to SoFi, right? But think about where this company was prior to the massive rate hike cycle and prior to massive inflation, right? 3 years ago, this stock was around $16 or so, right? Which is around a 2x from where the stock is right now. And keep in mind, the business is in 1,000 times better place than where the business was at that particular time. Back then, 3 years ago, SoFi was a huge money-losing company that didn't have a ton of customers, that didn't have the revenues even remotely close to where those revenues are at here today, didn't have the AUM even remotely close to where it is today, right? Hadn't been proven to be able to get through something like what has been thrown at this company over the past few years, right? And we got a 2x just to get back to where it used to be. Like, you want to talk about a stock that has some big upside. I don't think there's not a bank out there that exists that I've ever seen that has bigger upside potential than SoFi. It by far has the biggest upside potential. You look at somebody like an Honest, right? This could be seen as another sleepy company. They sell beauty-related products. They sell diapers and wipes and all those sorts of things, right? And I mean, you look at this stock, it just in the past 5 trading days is up 18%. If this rotation continues to roll, you'll see Honest at $10 plus fast. You'll see Honest $10 plus this year. If this rotation continues to roll, and Carla continues to execute on this business the way she's been doing, and that net income starts to fly up in the remainder of this year, you'll see Honest hit a 10 this year. That's a crazy thing to take into account when it comes to a stock like this, right? Now, if the rotation just stalls out, or if Carla, mismanages the company, that's a whole different ballgame. But as long as the rotation that we're seeing continues to play out, and Carla continues to run this company the way she's been running it, which is absolutely phenomenal, you'll see the stock go to like 10 this year. This year, right? Now, keep in mind where the stock was 3 years ago. It was a $14 plus stock, right? Which is about a 4x from where the stock is right now. And keep in mind, Honest is on the most stable footing it's ever been on as a public company. If you look at any time period since this company went public, and you look at where their revenues are at, their bottom line's at, where their margins are at, where everything's trending in regards to the business model, where the management team's at, this is by far the most stable footing the company's ever had. Yet the stock's $3 a share, right? No one's wanted to own these sorts of stocks the last few years. And these stocks had nothing but relentless selling pressure. I mean, look at that. Like, everybody that wanted to sell Honest stock sold Honest stock. From $14 all the way down to $1. It's incredible, right? Now, completely random, I saw this. This is so random. So I heard rumors that they were building a QT here. And if you know my history, I used to, be a manager at QT back in the day, right? I left the company actually a decade ago, 10 years ago, right? And I heard they were building a QT in Vegas, the first one ever. So we drove out there to go see it. And sure enough, they're building it actually on this piece of land. And I'm like, that's really exciting. But then my wife said, I had the maps up. She said, there's an Honest warehouse over here. I said, what? Honest warehouse? And sure enough, there was an actual Honest warehouse out there, which is, I think it only looks a few years old in regards to Honest Warehouse. Looks like they've been using it for the past few years. Actually has reviews on it as well. And I had no clue they even had a distribution facility, a warehouse out there, right? And the one thing I'll say about it, though, you would never know it's an Honest Warehouse because they don't have any branding. It's right on the highway, too, right on the 15 there. They got to get branding going on this baby, man. They need branding. This facility's massive, by the way. It's a 571,000 square foot distribution center. I mean, absolutely massive. And so Honest has been using this the past few years, and really good to see. I love seeing stuff like that. But man, they need branding. That building had like no Honest branding almost anywhere on it. I'm like, dude, you're right on the highway. Like, it's free advertising, basically. Put Honest branding all over it. If you ever go by Amazon warehouse, there's no confusion. It's an Amazon warehouse. There's Amazon branding all over it, right? You ever go by like a Walmart warehouse, there's no confusing it. It basically looks like a gigantic Walmart store, just without any windows, which honestly Walmarts don't have many windows anyway, so maybe it is just basically a giant Walmart store, right? But like Honest needs to get on that branding game on their warehouse there in North Las Vegas. I'm like, get on that, baby. You look at a stock like the Planet, right? These stocks are a little more late stage rally, so the more you have smalls roll. So the way I'll put it to you like this. At first, you're going to have more quality small caps roll, right? Do very, very well. And as the more quality small caps roll, you'll have what is seen as less quality. Now, that doesn't mean the Planet's a less quality company. I'm just saying, like, it's viewed as that for now, right? Doesn't mean like it'll be that for 5 years or 10 years in the future, but that's the way it's viewed now. So as more and more small caps roll, then you get even a broadening inside the smaller cap companies. And then you get some of the more micro cap companies start to roll as well, right? And so if we continue to see, let's say over the next month or two, stocks like the Honest, Revolve, SoFi, those are seen as more quality type small caps. If you see some of those continue to roll, right, the next up will be some of the more micro names, which would definitely be something like Planet, right? The Planet's been a stock that's obviously been devastated. It's started trend up a little bit, but in terms of the big move, that's a little later stage in the rally. It's a 48-cent stock. I mean, to get back to where the stock was 3 years ago, it's a 15x. 15x from here. That's a wild one, right? Wild. But yeah, in terms of, there's a broadening in the market first, and then you get a broadening inside the small caps after that, right? You look at something like Avant Brands. I mean, look at Avant. Avant, if we go back 3 years ago, it's basically a 10x from here, right? A 10x. But those sorts of stocks, those like MJ-related companies, right? They have their time to shine, but it's a little further on in the kind of rally cycle here, right? Now, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but you might say, okay, well, what if these stocks don't 5x, 10x, 15x, 20x, right? Over the next, however long this rotation lasts, whether it's another 3 months, 6 months, whether it's another year, right? Okay, let's say they don't. Let's say they only 2x. Let's say they only 3x. Let's say they don't get anywhere remotely close to where these stocks used to be. Let's say they don't 5x, 10x, 20x, right? 17x. What's wrong with a 2x? What's wrong with a 3x? What's wrong with a 4x, right? I mean, a lot of these stocks are so devastated. They're in such a devastated place, right? And now with Fed funds rate looking like it's going to start coming down, interest rates have likely peaked, these stocks finally get some buying pressure to come into them, right? And they finally get some rotation. I mean, a little bit goes a long way in regards to these stocks. And the biggest thing I always do when it comes to these sorts of stocks, I keep position sizing smaller in terms of how much money I put in. So if you look at my portfolios, you're going to find a lot of these sorts of companies might be a 1, 2, or 3% weighting in the overall portfolio. A lot of times it's closer to 1 to 2%. And the reason being is a little bit goes a long way in regards to these stocks. Because if these stocks are the 10x, 15x, 20x opportunities, I don't need to put a lot of money into them to be a game changer, right? If I've got a $2 million account, like the public account. The public account's $2 million plus, right? But let's say $2 million, okay? If I put $20,000 into one of these companies and it 10x's, right? Let's say I'm going into Honest, and Honest goes from 3 to 30, right? So I get a 10x there, and I put $20,000 into Honest, right? Which is a 1% weighting out of a $2 million portfolio. It's now a $200,000 weight in the portfolio, right? Because it went up so much. So that's what I say in regards to these more speculative stocks. People sometimes want to go so crazy with them and they want to put crazy amount of money into it. Why? You don't need to. That's just trying to be greedy, and you're putting your portfolio at too big of a risk. As long as you keep your position sizing, let's call it not crazy in regards to these stocks, you set yourself up in a really good situation. Because even if, let's say you buy 4 of these sorts of companies, right? Let's say 3 of them don't do much, okay? Maybe they go up a little bit, down a little bit, but one of them actually is at 5x, 10x, 20x opportunity. Boom. like it was a game changer. But the thing is, you can't just spread money out and not know what you're doing. You still got to know what you're doing. You still got to know how to value these companies, understand the business models, understand any moats around them, what their market opportunity is, what their market share they're going after, and all those sorts of things. If you don't understand that, then you're just kind of like gambling money out there. When I make bets on these sorts of companies, they're very educated bets that I understand like where this company's business is likely to trend over the coming years and what's going to likely happen for them, right? Doesn't mean I'm always going to be right, but there's an educated guess there, which is investing at the end of the day. You're making an educated assumption on what's going to happen in the future by looking at what's happened in the past, what's going on currently, right? And what you then expect into the future, right? So that's a little food for thought in regards to that. You don't need everything to be a 20x to still do absolutely phenomenal, right? Now, if you're in the private group, I posted this yesterday. This was really helpful. It was, kind of a bunch of different stuff I wrote about valuing and growth stock. So not a lot of people understand valuing a stock, period, but especially a lot of people don't understand how to value a growth stock. And so I wrote all that. Make sure you click on that, read that through. I think that's going to be helpful to a lot of you guys. It looks like a good amount of you guys have seen that so far, so glad you guys are enjoying that, okay? All right, appreciate you joining me as always. If you're looking to apply to join my private group, get access to all my course curriculums, exclusive videos, the moves I'm making my $2 million plus portfolio, and take your game up to a much higher level and start to take investing more serious, then click the pinned comment down there, fill out an application. We'll see if we can get you in there. Much love and have a great day.